So hi everyone. It's getting a little bit late, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. My name is Dimitris Togias. I'm CTO of Instacar. And today I'm going to tell you how we are using third-party tools in Instacar to build an amazing product. Before diving into the presentation, I would like to spend some minutes to tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a software engineer for almost 20 years. I've worked with teams, small teams as a team leader, and I've also worked with the teams of 100 people, mostly engineers. I consider myself partly a software engineer, and the other part is management. I'm not sure, though. I'm trying to decide how good I am at both. What do we do at Instacar? At Instacar, we consider ourselves the first fully digital vehicle subscription service in Southeast Europe. In simple terms, what we do is called flexible leasing. Compared to traditional leasing, where you have a closed contract for 3 or 4 years, and for a specific car, with Instacar, you have the option of canceling your subscription at any point. It can be 2 months, 6 months, even a year, maybe even 4 years if you like. And you also have the option of changing the car whenever you like, depending on your budget, depending on your needs, or maybe if you would like to try another brand or another car. For our future, what we would like to do is basically go beyond leasing and create what we call a marketplace for vehicles. What we basically want to do, we want to create a super application that even not our customers would be able to, for example, arrange a booking for a service, or buy some tires, or even call a roadside assistant. So that's at least the big idea and the plans that we have for the future. Now, putting some numbers to that idea is that we were created in 2019. I think in September this year, we are 4 years young. And during those 4 years, we have managed to have a fleet of cars more than 2,000. The slide is a little bit outdated. And we are growing year over year with a total of 60 people in the team, and meaning engineering teams, product teams, operations, finance, and the other people as well. So moving on to the presentation and switching a little bit gears. What I mean by third-party tool, and before we proceed, a small definition. We consider all software platforms or tools that a company is using to actually try to support the product that they are building. Huge disclaimer, I know that we are living in a gold era of software development. There are a lot of startups out there building amazing things. What I'm about to present doesn't mean that it applies to everyone. It applies to us, at least, to some extent. So I will try to give as much information as possible. The main reason that we use third-party tools was actually to accelerate the time to market. The engineering team was relatively young, is relatively young. I think it's less than a year. That means that during that year we have to find the people, build the software, while at the same time we have to evolve the product, and that creates a huge demand for the engineering and the product teams. And that also led us to try to have more flexibility. Now, a small list of the software that we actually are using in Instacar. What is missing here is probably a small diagram. We have created a small API or software in the middle that acts as a glue. It actually combines all the things that you see here and passes information from one system to the other. I will try to go through a couple of things in this list in case you don't know them. I will focus on the things that it's important for us, and in case someone has any questions, you can come up to me or you can ask a question. So the first one in the list, and what makes our sales teams happy, is the Pipe Drive. It's a sales pipeline software. It's actually the gathering point of all our leads and all our requests from customers. We feed that system from different locations like Facebook ads, Google ads, telephone, someone calls in our call center and requests for a car. That gives a global view to our sales team of what is happening, what is the state of its deal, and eventually which one of the potential customers actually becomes a customer. The second one is called AirCall. You might not know it, but it's a call center in the cloud. It's not a super sophisticated one, but it's enough for our use cases. It gives us the flexibility to have people working from home using the same software as they use in the office. So that means that we can also have remote teams in case, for example, that we don't have any internet in the company or someone has to go somewhere. The next three things, I think it's pretty common, like Intercom or Viva payments. And I would like finally to mention a little bit a new tool that we are trying, which is called Retool. Retool is a visual editor to build UIs or dashboards, and we are trying it internally. Gives the flexibility to our teams, for example, our operation teams or the finance team, to build their own dashboards. What we have to provide as an engineering team is the proper APIs to gather the data, to retrieve the data, so they can visualize them in their own dashboards. It's not so technical, it's pretty easy to configure. In case some team needs some additional information, someone from the engineering team talks with them. Now, what's the selection process? At least the way that we understand it, and based on our experience the last 1 year and a half. If you remove the obvious one, which is like scalability or security or the costs, like how do you select it? The two most obvious ones, for me at least, is that the tool has to cover the needs that we actually have at the moment. As I mentioned before, there is a huge selection of software out there, so it's pretty difficult to find exactly what is needed for your company. And the second one, which is mandatory from an engineering perspective, is the APIs. The software that you are going to buy or use, it needs to have a proper API and well documented. Now, closing my presentation, I would like to go through a list of pros and cons, starting with the benefits. The first 4 bullets, it's actually pretty similar. The end goal is actually to go faster to market, right? We are a B2C company, so it's pretty important for us to deliver a nice or an excellent experience for our customers, right? So the first 3 bullets, what they describe in short is that we are able to reduce the development time because we are using something that is already maintained and scalable and maintained by other teams. So we can free our internal teams to decide which things to focus, right? As I mentioned before, flexibility is one of the key factors for us. We mean the flexibility that each team using an external tool, it has the flexibility to adapt the tool and modify it according to their needs. You don't have to be an engineer to use an external tool. For example, Pipedrive has a lot of integrations and a lot of automations that the operation teams can actually modify or tweak. And this is really critical, especially when you're a startup and a lot of things are not written in stone. Things might change from day to day, from week to week. Another one is also the internal teams can actually decide on the processes. What we usually say that the process for a startup starts with a version 0, and over a month it can go to version 10 because you have a lot of things, you have a lot of iterations, so you have a lot of things changing really fast. And when this happens, usually the dev teams, if they are a small team, it's not difficult, it's not easy to adapt to those needs really fast. And finally, what I'm a big fan of is I like to use modular software. External platforms provide the ability to switch things. Like, for example, if at some point we decide to switch Pipedrive to an internal system, having it as an external system, it's easy to build that new system and switch or switch from one to another without interrupting everyday work. And finally, something which might not be obvious, technologies change all the time. For example, AI is something that, or ChatGPT is something that happened the last 6 months. So external platforms, usually startups adapt faster than us in those technologies, usually because we focus on other things than those startups. So external or third-party tools gives you the option of evaluating new technologies, building faster proof of concepts, and decide if it's something that you need to invest money and time into. Now, finally, some disadvantages or cons, if you like it. The first one, which is really critical for me, is the cost. The cost can easily grow really fast. In our case, I think in 1 year of operations, I think we have reached almost 7,000 or 8,000 per month using all those external tools. If you take into account also that most of the platforms out there have the per user pricing model, which for me personally, it's pretty, it's not so good, it's not a good pricing model. It gets abused by a lot of companies out there. And in some models might not make sense. Second option is the data. Having different systems from different companies, it means that your data are in multiple places. For example, we have a customer list in Pipedrive, we have another one in Intercom, and we have another one probably in Viva. That creates the problem of the company having multiple sources of truth. Usually, you solve that by synchronizing or creating some internal software that synchronizes data between different systems, but it's easily to fall back. And third thing that is really important, and it's a disadvantage, is most of the external platforms, usually they don't have access control or really good access controls. It means if you'd like to refine your access control, for example, an X person or an X team you need to restrict access to specific resources. It's not easy to do that with external platforms. Usually they have pretty basic user model like user, member, or manager, and that's it. What we've seen in our case is that some tools get really abused. For example, in Pipedrive, it's a sales actually pipeline, but at the moment we have our credit teams and our delivery teams use it. The tool is not, let's say, developed for that purpose, so the teams are using it in not the proper way, and that creates issues like difficulties with data or mixing flows from one team to the other. And another one, which is Captain Obvious, I guess, it's the vendor lock-in. When you decide to choose a software, you actually are tied to that vendor for the full lifetime of that, for the full lifetime of when you're using that tool. You have to think about that the tools that an external company is building, they are generic tools. They cannot be easily customized, or you might end up after 1 year or 2 years to reach the limit of that tool, and the company most probably will refuse to build something explicitly for you. And the last three things, which is more engineering related, tools and especially APIs tend to change. That means that you have to spend some time maintaining that glue software that sits in the middle. Testing can be really difficult in some cases. Not all companies have sandboxes or dev environments, meaning that if you like to run end-to-end tests, if a product doesn't offer a sandbox, you end up putting demo data or test data in your production, and that means disrupting the teams that are actually using it every day. In our case, I think the ERP that the invoicing software that we use at the moment doesn't provide a sandbox. So what we ended up doing is we asked for the company to create a second instance with the exact same functionality and feed it with demo data. And finally, reports, as everyone mentioned all the people mentioned before, reporting and metrics and all the relevant things, is not available from all the software, all the third-party tools. That means in those cases you have to get the data and feed it into a system, a BI system, so you are able to query them and make business decisions. I think that's it, right? I should take this one, right? No?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Ah, okay.
Here. Thank you very much, Dimitri. I don't see any questions on the slide, though. I don't know. I think I see one. Okay. Have you ever faced any issue with a third-party tool getting end of support or not providing the necessary features for you anymore? And how did you tackle this?
Can you go again? If you
Have you ever faced any issue with a third-party tool getting end of support or not providing the necessary
No,
features?
end of support, no, at the moment at least. But not getting the necessary support, yes. Usually they are behind a steep price to get good support. And in those cases, you actually have to pay for get that support if it's critical for your company. If it's not critical, you have to wait until something is fixed from their side, which is a big issue. That's it.
Okay, I have one question.
Sure.
Have myself. When do you actually decide whether you want to use an external tool to buy it or versus to build something in-house, the buy versus build?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, to decide if we need to use an external tool, we have to make some type of prioritization with the product and engineering teams. Like see the roadmap and decide if it's something that we can fit or if it's something that can take priorities. That's the first thing. The second thing is have to discuss with the people requesting it, that feature or that product or whatever, to see how fast they need that.
Okay.
So it's a collaboration and it's a discussion if we can prioritize and what we are going to miss if we reprioritize things or what's the cost of having it externally. Bear in mind that we are a young team. Like, as I said, we are 1 year, and that means that we have to hire, train, architect the software from the ground up. And from time to time, that means that we have to focus on other things instead of building something from zero.
Yeah.
This excludes, of course, software like, for example, payments, right? I think nobody does that payments. It's pretty hard, it's pretty complicated, so everyone is buying something from either banks or some other payment processing. I'm talking mostly about internal tools or things that are needed by operations or finance.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.